can, trying to corral our players here, and there we go. Corey Baumeister against Hiroki Yamashita. Reclamation Mirror with... I don't love this hand for Corey. Really not accomplishing anything early on. You see him running over this, does decide to keep it, leads on Breeding Pool. We'll see if Hiroki has a fast out that can punish him.
And Yamashita's list actually one that's quite interesting, with a main deck copy of Narset Porter of Veils, copy of Brazen Borrower, a Thassa's Intervention, and those two main deck negates that we've sort of just come to expect at this point.
Yeah, Thassa's Intervention, when Theros Beyond Death came out, that was a card that was a 4-of mainstay in Team of Reclamation as this early counterspell Reclamation payoff split card. Got edged out of the deck as more efficient options were printed. You know, now we have Shark Typhoon, we have a bunch of other things, but still a perfectly serviceable card if you want to support it.
Yeah, absolutely. And here we actually see Corey using one of these crucial expansion explosions in a more mana-efficient way than we normally see from these Team of Reclamation decks, with expansion copying a Growth Spiral to sort of give him his own copy of Growth Spiral and get out ahead of Yamashita's mana.
Yeah, Baumeister would have loved to have a Growth Spiral in that drawer, and he found one, even though he had to jump through some hoops to do it.
Hey, yesterday we saw Autumn Burchak copying Cultivates all day with expansion. Why not a Growth Spiral? That's even a card in Baumeister's deck.
Absolutely, and I love that flexibility of Expansion Explosion. You know, it's satisfying on one level to see a gigantic explosion, also kind of fun though on the other end to see an expansion just finding the ideal thing to copy.
Oh, was that a missed land drop?
I think it is.
Oh, that's such a big deal, especially with this Shark Typhoon waiting in the wings for Baumeister to close this door.
And now Corey can really capitalize on this mana advantage even further with an Uro.
Just getting out ahead, making sure the Shark can close the door as fast as possible.
And even further from that with a Growth Spiral.
Are we going to be looking at 8 lands to 3?
It's going to be 7 right now.
Oh my goodness.
With the help of a Spiral. So yeah, this is a big draw set for Yamashita. May have redraws via, here we go, Shark Typhoon. Giving him another look at it.
Alright, that's a chance.
And here's a main phase art for Yamashita. It's clear what he's digging for. Sends a card to the bottom.
Oh, misses again. This is not what you want to see when you were playing for top 8.
And I'm sure Corey Baumeister, and there's another Growth Spiral main phase for Hiroki. You may see the same in response for Baumeister. And I'm sure Corey is laughing his laugh at this turn of events. He knows that he's far ahead in the game. Now he just needs a way to drive it home. Aethergust going to be instrumental in doing that.
Well, luckily, 2x spells, either gust 7 lands on the battlefield. Corey's gotta love his position here.
And we have to be somewhat close to Uro, right?
3 not Uro cards, I believe?
Passages 4, we could cycle Shark Typhoon now, make it 5, or we could just pass the turn and make a gigantic Shark, holding up our Aethergust and our Expansion Explosion.
Yeah, having a 6/6 Shark is something that, without that one copy of Brazen Borrower, Yamashita is going to struggle to get out from under on in this stage of the game. This also is the luxury of forcing Yamashita's hand if you want to really make sure your Uro is going to resolve.
There is a 6/6 Shark and a Brazen Borrower that can counteract either a Reclamation turn or a Shark Typhoon for Yamashita. Eventually, we could also, I guess this 1/1 is chump blocking now. If there's another Shark hoping to chump block, we can just swat that out of the way and keep attacking.
Without any Planeswalkers to protect, you really want to do your chump blocks in that vein aggressively, just because with so many Brazen Borrowers flying around in these decks as of late, you don't actually know you'll get that chance later on.
Or a second Aethergust for Corey. Scries out to the bottom, though. He thinks he can do better.
Speaking
and another
of chump
small
blockers,
Shark. There it is.
See that pause from Corey, thinking if it was maybe time to go ahead and just deal 4 and draw 4 with that explosion.
Would be a good window for it. Don't want to run that into a main deck mystical dispute on the gate. And there is Petty Theft on the Shark. And it's so satisfying when you get to cast the adventure half and the creature half of one of these cards in the same turn. 3-1 Brazen Borrower, join the battlefield for Corey, who even gets to charge up his Shark Typhoon. Oh, charge up his Blast Zone, excuse me, for good measure. And an attack for 9 here. This is a 2-turn clock for Corey Baumeister.
And this is why that mana advantage is so important in the Reclamation mirrors. If you just get this colossal shark from an early cycled Shark Typhoon, early relatively speaking, of course, then you can just make your opponent have to operate on the back foot and play catch up the whole game, which makes it to where you can't take risks like just taking a turn off to try and jam something like a Wilderness Reclamation into open mana.
Is this going to be a 3rd Shark Typhoon? It looks like it, so that 4/4 Shark can eat the Brazen Borrower, but that leaves the door wide open for Corey to use Expansion Explosion.
Oh, this is so brutal. What are the odds we just see it for 6 on the Shark?
I'm in. We could see it for 4, kill the Shark, hold up Ether Gust.
Ooh, that's a very attractive option.
Prevent any Wilderness Reclamation shenanigans from Yamashita's side.
Ooh, you don't want to leave up that blast zone.
Auto Tapper just keeping Corey on his toes here.
Tight play from Baumeister, tight tapping, making sure the auto tapper doesn't ruin him. Finds a negate off this explosion. Look at that.
Even a Growth Spiral in case there's nothing in the pipeline.
Yamashita has his work cut out for him here.
Okay, this has to be something good. What can he muster up?
Well, Fabled Passage at sorcery speed is a sign that there's something coming. An Uro, just the front half, buys a turn.
Alright, here's Reclamation. And so the fight begins. Corey only has 2 mana to fight over this. If Yamashita has a Mystical Dispute or a Negate, even an expansion of his own, then this could get thorny. And you see there, if Corey goes for Negate, then an expansion from Yamashita lets the Reclamation resolve. So we might see Ether Gust as the go-to here instead. But no, we're just going to let that resolve.
And this is giving Yamashita the opportunity to mess up and cast another spell like an Uro at sorcery speed, which would just slam the door shut. When you have these cards like Aether Gust that can still impact cards that are on the battlefield, you aren't pressured into choosing your fight immediately. You get the luxury of engaging when you want to.
And yeah, you see here, when Yamashita passes with no further actions, Corey still has a window to cast the Ether Gust. So that does get disputed.
All right.
We'll see now.
This is Yamashita's window. If he has Growth Spiral, Land Explosion, he can kill the Shark and draw 6.
Even an explosion for 5 killing the Brazen Borrower wouldn't be the worst. Two mana in the pool. A lot of pressure on Yamashita to make something happen right now.
And you've got to feel like there's an explosion happening now, with something taking this long to just cast.
Okay, so this is Explosion killing the Brazen Borrower, leaving 2 mana up, maybe hoping to draw into one of his 4 main deck copies of Ether Gust.
This is a start.
Or a Negate, or a Brazen Borrower. But that Mystical Dispute could be a big pickup from Corey too.
This is a situation where Yamashita's mana is incredibly taxed because he's on the back foot and is forced to interact on their own turn.
Here's another lethal threat in Uro. We see the Gust and we see the Dispute do excellent work for Corey Baumeister.
Gotta feel so good about getting that in with a Mystical Dispute at this phase of the game.
And now Yamashita will 4-3 from their Shark Attack.
And now with Negate Gust, Yamashita has so many bases to cover. You have to deal with both of these creatures and check 2 counter spells.
Do you think we'll see Corey go for a Gust on the Reclamation? Or is he going to hold it up for the payoff card?
I imagine we're just going to look at him going for the payoff card, but it's going to depend on how much mana that Yamashita commits during their main phase.
And here's an Narset. An excellent card at some stages of this game, but right now, it needs to find exactly the right answer for Yamashita.
Aether Gust is a nice one.
But that can delay Uro, in theory. And Corey does go for Gust on Reclamation, realizing that with this little mana, if Yamashita fights over this, then Corey can win the fight right here and just snap the door shut. And if it resolves, then Yamashita barely has any mana left to do anything with.
Yamashita needs 2 interactive pieces that stop this Aether Gust from here, or the game is over.
Gust on the stack, and that's his intervention. And Negate here for Corey is going to seal the deal.
Ooh.
So Corey Baumeister, moving to 1-0, looking to make his 3rd top 8 of the season here, is 1 game away from doing it. And we'll move to sideboarding, where we see a familiar cast of characters here: Spectral Sailor, Mystical Dispute, Commence the Endgame, Nightpack Ambusher, even Narset's Reversal that we saw used against Commence the Endgame, just such good effect. All possible inclusions here for Baumeister.
Right, this is, if I'm not mistaken, the same list that Autumn played yesterday to win. Maybe one more Spectral Sailor. Okay, so this is very close. That 1 copy of Narset's Reversal, 1 less Nissa, but very similar plans to what we've seen out of other people, including Aaron Diaz. So this is just a recipe for success in these 2 Reclamation matchups.
Yeah, tough to go wrong just copy and pasting Autumn's exact 75. Looks like Corey has made some tweaks around the edges. That 1 copy of Nissa Who Shakes the World has disappeared. We do have that extra Spectral Sailor, but by and large, very similar list, very similar philosophy behind it. And then for Yamashita's side, we have Nightpack Ambusher, Spectral Sailor, Commence the Endgame, Narset's Reversal, basically exactly the same here, and 1 copy of Spectral Sailor for him too.
All right, and this is sort of a recipe for success if you're in Baumeister's seat. You have the Growth Spiral and 2 lands, but something we see so frequently in these matchups is there are not enough lands in this opening hand. I'm anxious that Baumeister might miss and be out of this game before it begins.
Here's a big question in these Reclamation mirrors. Do you dispute the Growth Spiral?
Does Hiroki smell blood?
And Yamashita at least thinking about it. And so far, there have been no signs from Corey that he is that light on lands.
Oh, there's the sign.
He finds a 3rd land in Blast Zone.
When your opponent's Growth Spiral whiffs and then they hit the 3rd land on the following turn, you still have to feel pretty good about that situation. You know they're desperately digging for more mana sources.
Now he knows. Temple of Epiphany there as a 4th land for Corey Baumeister. Finds a 5th.
And for
we'll be very
a moment,
glad to see that.
Let's just look for 1 second at Baumeister's hand. There's only 1 piece of interaction for an opposing copy of Wilderness Reclamation at this point.
And it's an Aether Gust, which is only a temporary delaying tactic at best. Still tough, though, for Yamashita to justify jamming into that in the face of 6 or 7 cards in hand. 1-1 Shark rumbles in. Gross spell on the end set for Yamashita. And now is Yamashita going to miss a land drop? No,
absolutely not. Did that last game, decided they did not like the taste, and will not be doing that for the remainder of the match.
Dabbled in it, and then thought better of it. And commenced the endgame, meets a Narset's reversal.
Really, the story of this weekend, Narset's reversal, really coming into its own in a way where it originally felt like it was just a cute card to beat exactly Thought Distortion, but as people lean in to commence the endgame, Narset's reversal, I know it has reversal in the name, but the level of the reversal is colossal. You win on a huge mana exchange, and then you also get a body for your trouble. Your opponent just goes from at parity to maybe catching up to so far behind.
But right now, if Corey goes to that commence again, his army will be bigger than Yamashita's. And so it's, I guess, Yamashita can still attack, because then if Corey commences, then the shields are down, Yamashita lands a reclamation or something else. But on the end step, Corey can just wrest back control of this game again through the same sequence.
That's assuming there's not a Brazen Borrower from Yamashita.
And that is a bold assumption.
There are 2 copies in the 75 for Yamashita, and that is a card that is frequently reserved for the large tokens that end up defining these mirrors.
Often a shark, but it can be a zombie army too.
Do.
Hiroki shocks in the steam vents, and there's commence the endgame again. No Narset's reversal this time. And will this army make it through the untap step? No, it doesn't. Petty theft there for Yamashita.
Not this time.
And now Corey under a lot of pressure to make a move.
And this is a position where he really wanted to find some more lands to play. Only having that one breeding pool means that Corey is sort of priced into just playing these cards like Uro, hoping to rip lands just to get cards out of hand and develop onto the battlefield.
And still no more interaction here for Corey. Hasn't found an engage or a dispute. Still just banking heavily on that one copy of Ether Gust, which that can't hit a shark, can't hit the black zombie army token.
Right, these things like Spectral Sailor, commence the endgame, are for long, grindy affairs where what's important is what's on the stack, how many cards people have available, and that's not what this is. Yamashita is attacking. This is about life total. This is about battlefield presence.
The Spectral Sailor can jump in front of the Brazen Borrower, but Corey now down to 7. And he can cycle Shark Typhoon for a 1-1 Shark, but really needs to be able to deal with the larger one on the battlefield.
Yeah, it's a spot where cycling to make a chump blocker just doesn't feel like a long-term strategy, so I would expect to just see a larger Shark Typhoon cycle to try and eat this army at this point.
Uro in the graveyard ready to escape.
There's a not zero chance the line is Wilderness Reclamation, and then go from there.
Corey decides to lead out on Uro. And that gut's not a surprise, but Corey will still hate to see it.
Not something that he really can fight over, but the pause here is just to kind of say, okay, let's make it look like I have a negate. Let's try to make my future fights be more delayed so I can pick them and engage in them when I want.
And there's a reclamation. There's a negate. Corey fires back with expansion. One more piece of interaction will do it here for Hiroki. And you have to imagine if he had it, it would have jumped out of the hand.
Oh, it
but
did.
That's not his intervention.
That one takes a minute.
Sure does. And we'll be heading to Game 3 here in a hot minute between Corey Baumeister and Hiroki Yamashita. One of these Team of Reclamation players will make it into our top 8. We just have to determine which one. And we see Nightpack Ambusher in the board here for Corey.
And that's just basically an announcement that Baumeister wants to try and win this on the stack. wants to use things like Spectral Sailor, commence the endgame, these cards that never require you to really take the shields down, and reduce the efficacy of opposing cards like Aether Gust. You really want to have Uro just kind of tax those cards out of Yamashita's hand without actually having to commit cards from your own hand.
And commence the endgame did fantastic work in that game. We'll see how soon the endgame commences here. A good start for Corey, double Dispute, Shark Typhoon, and Wilderness Reclamation, and 3 lands to kick things off. Fable Passage, cracked and a turn for Hiroki. Does Fable Passage into Basic Island suggest anything about the contents of Yamashita's hand?
At this point, I would assume that the blue sources are tapped or are Castle Vantress.
So Gross Battle immediately disputed by Baumeister, and you were right. Castle Vantress comes down as a 3rd land for Hiroki.
No idea who could have seen that one coming. Just really off-the-wall stuff.
Implying that Yamashita may again be landlight in this game 3. We will soon see.
There's no sort of dual land. We see these aggressive growth spirals cast at times that Baumeister does not want to counter them because Yamashita knows that's a better way to leverage them in a way that will make them resolve.
That's the event. That's another forest. Shark Typhoon cycle for Corey at the end of turn. Does have the Brazen Bar to pick off a bigger shark that's hoping to chomp it down, as well as a second Shark Typhoon himself.
There's even the level if Yamashita makes that bigger shark, that could just pave the way for a Wilderness Reclamation.
Yeah, I think Yamashita would, we see here, be too cautious to do that in combat, knowing what I would open the door for.
2 points when you're at 20 is not worth it.
And Yamashita's keen to exchange damage here. Attacks with his own shark.
And we saw last game how interested Yamashita is at playing this sort of tempo game where you just build a 3/3 flyer here, another big flyer there, apply pressure while keeping your opponent on that back foot.
And those 2 shocklands have nibbled into Corey Baumeister's life level. He's now down at 13. Yamashita's going to follow up in his main phase with Uro.
Still hitting those crucial land drops.
And now we'll see if Corey wants to make his own shark as a 3/3, or go for both halves of Brazen Borrower. I think I like this here for Corey. You find more lands, or you get to land the Reclamation. That Shark Typhoon is going to get much bigger, much faster.
I really like this Brazen Borrower from Baumeister, largely in part because as you reduce resources on the battlefield, whoever has a single resource more or 2 resources more is going to be way more favored than if you simply muddy up the battlefield with more resources.
Now look at this. Corey considering going for Wilderness Reclamation, and I like it here. You know that Dispute would cost 3 mana. You can force through that with your own Dispute. Hard for Yamashita to have 2 pieces of interaction unless there's a Dispute in the mix. Aether Gust does open the door for that. We'll see if he has it.
Oh, it resolves quick.
There we go. So Reclamation is on the battlefield for Corey, who now has substantial pressure on the board and a Reclamation. And an Uro ready to escape next turn.
Shark Typhoon in hand. This is the way that Baumeister could close the door and make it to the top 8.
But Corey doesn't have his own interaction, so if Yamashita can fire back with the Reclamation or with something else, very much still in it here. And Uro is on the battlefield. Let's not glance over that.
Right. That Uro coming back successfully. Yamashita with 3 cards in hand. What does that mean?
4/4 Shark for Corey. Is there a collective noun for sharks?
Yeah. Sharks.
Yes, a shark full of sharks. Right here for Corey.
What
10
about
power in total.
A hammock of sharks?
I'll allow it.
A barrel of sharks.
Corey will get to escape his own Uro. Or just casting the front side, it looks like. Oh, and there's an Aether Gust that can answer Hiroki's.
Huge display of patience from Baumeister, not shocking that land in and going for Uro.
And Hiroki's Brazen Borrower answered the larger shark already, threatening to really stymie his offense here. I'm getting word from our director, yes, that a shiver of sharks, I believe, is the proper noun. And
thus, I shall refer to them as a desk of sharks because I can't spell the word that the director just said in our ear.
Ethergast going after Hiroki's Uro.
Which is good.
And it's coming back down. And Corey, he stuck the reclamation. He doesn't have a payoff for it yet. All it's doing is letting him float some useless mana. So this could be Hiroki's chance.
Castle Vantress, an expansion explosion. Any of these cards would put Baumeister back into this game, but he needs to find one fast.
Another Commence, a Shark Typhoon, Spectral Sailor. Lots of good options here. Blast Zone isn't it? Does have some utility, potentially.
That being said, Uro coming back from the graveyard is another draw, and Baumeister is already quite ahead on the battlefield.
Yeah, we'll see if this Uro can stick and find him something else. Finds a Shark Typhoon. Okay, that qualifies. That'll do it.
Absolutely, that qualifies.
Corey doing the math on whether he wants to shock in the Stomping Ground. Decides against it. Sends his flyers in. Not respecting a possible Shark Typhoon. Already gone through a couple of copies for Yamashita. Noted it's unlikely he has yet another. And we could cycle this on the end step, or we have enough lands in play. We can wait to ambush that on Hiroki's end step and still be presenting lethal in the process.
Alright, so a couple counters on Hiroki's Blast Zone. That's going to check Uro and Brazen Borrower on Baumeister's turn. Oh, that's a big shock.
That means something, even if you don't know what.
Big shock, meet big shark. 7/7 from Baumeister. Just looking like he is a combat step away from making this top 8 if he can just answer that Brazen Borrower on Yamashita's side.
Here we go. Blast Zone eats 2 non-token threats. The tokens charge in. What does Yamashita have? You see the lands getting highlighted there. 8 mana available.
Is that a 5/5 shark?
I want to say a 6/6 shark. So Yamashita stays alive at 1 life.
Okay.
We are not out of the woods just yet.
If that shark teams up with Brazen Borrower, it can have the greatest crossover of all time to take down the evil tyrant. 7/7 shark.
Corey has found a Castle Vantress too. So he'll go digging with our Wilderness Reclamation. How do we feel about Spectral Sailor?
Oh,
that's a lethal threat.
Oh, that's a very nice one. It's a lethal threat. It's a ton of cards.
Absolutely. We even get to scry again and see the card underneath. And may as well start charging out that Blast Zone now.
That's going to make it so that Brazen Borrower will not be as good at ganging up against the shark. Two top from Yamashita. Corey's shields are down.
Are you going to see a reclamation here? We're going to see something.
We're going to see a pass of the turn.
There's another Shark Typhoon for Baumeister.
Oh, this is so close. Yamashita's at 1.
What have you got, Hiroki? A massive shark leaving 2 mana open. Possibly a negate waiting in the wings. Double block on this shark.
One way to dodge the borrower problem with that blast zone. Oh, this is going to be so many cards. Mana with Reclamation into Spectral Sailor, into Activate Spectral Sailor, into Activate Spectral Sailor, with 2 mana left on the back, into a Growth Spiral, into Cast It.
And we still have 11 mana left over when all is said and done.
Honestly, I could have been an auctioneer in another life.
This is great practice for it.
Yamashita going with that upkeep. Scry has to find something, cannot miss this turn.
And he may not know just how much danger he's in. That Shark Typhoon, I believe the 3rd or even the 4th of the game for Corey Baumeister. In his hand, 2 on top for Hiroki. They've got to be good ones. He's passing the turn.
All right, let's see it, Corey. What do you got? Oh my god.
That's a 3rd lethal threat for Corey Baumeister.
That's the 3rd Spectral Sailor. That's exactly... What could Yamashita have to beat this?
Well, a Brazen Borrower still bounces a shark.
Nothing!
And then...
Nothing!
No, nothing! Okay, well, that does it. So
That
Corey
is...
Baumeister, the 3rd